Hello and welcome to Tell Me Something I Already Know. I'm your host, Cyrus Waters, aka Young Hydro, and I am here with Senior Aguas.
Yay,
And
yay.
we have an email right in from Cameron Lee from Denver, Colorado. He writes, Senior Aguas, I am a huge fan of your Man Cave segments. I noticed that you have a nice collection of NBA throwback jerseys. I was wondering, which era do you think is the greatest?
Well, actually, if you can watch my Man Cave segments, if you notice, there's Bird, Magic, Jordan, and Isaiah that's kind of hanging up in my Man Cave, and that pretty much tells you what era I pretty much like. I really like the '80s with Magic, Bird, and Jordan. They were like more or less blue collar workers, the grinding, in the trenches before the flagrant foul. You know what I mean? A lot of people say that was bad defense. The hand check was available. You couldn't play zone defense. Just a blue collar worker. Now the talent now, and then you get into the '90s, the talent level, it was probably they were probably a little more athletic, but we did have Dominique and Jordan, Dr. J,
Right.
more or less blue collar workers, man. The early to mid '80s and late '80s, I want to say, because I was a Detroit Piston fan, man. The Detroit Dennis Rodman, you know what I mean? The bullet, the bad boys.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say, obviously I grew up in a different time. Of course, you'll have a different opinion based on what era you grew up in. But I was more like, late 90s, early 2000s. That was when
Right.
I was into basketball. I played, through school. Allen Iverson was my guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
he,
Right.
well, he made small ball, kind of like, I guess, how Isaiah Thomas was back in your time. But Iverson, he
Yeah.
revolutionized and brought back the importance of a small ball guy. He brought the
Yeah.
swag into
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
hip hop culture.
He did. He had with the braids and the throwback jerseys.
Yeah.
You see Magic and Isaiah and Jordan, they had the three-piece suits on. You know what I mean? And nobody, Jordan had a hoop earring, and you didn't have you see a lot of guys with a lot of tattoos back then. It was more of a back then guys just came and they did their job, and they went back. I don't know if you saw The Last Dance. Afterwards, they went back and you see Scottie Pippen and Jordan and Harper drinking Miller Lights. After they got off the training table. But
Let me ask you something regarding Michael Jordan. This is a criticism that some people give Michael Jordan. They say that he played in an era where there wasn't a lot of competition, not as much competition as it was for Jordan when he first came into the league in the '80s. Like you said, he had to deal with Bird, he had to deal with Magic, he had to deal with the Bad Boys Pistons and Isaiah Thomas. Once they left,
well, it was a lot when he came. It was a lot of unsung heroes that he probably went up against that a lot of people don't know about. There was Sidney Moncrief from the Milwaukee Bucks. He was kind of like the gloves, a defensive specialist. There was a scoring machine with Bernard King and Alex English. You know what I mean? Guys like that. Mark Aguirre and Rolando Blackman were from the Dallas Mavericks, and they were scoring machines. So there were guys that were talented, but because of social media and things like that, YouTube and things like that, you can go back and look at some of these guys, but they were just as talented. You had Dominique and of course Dr. J and Bird. These guys were all talented players. And the Twin Towers, Ralph Sampson and Hakeem Olajuwon, they were talented players. A lot of people say that Jordan didn't have anyone to play against. But when the '90s came, I mean, Karl Malone and John Stockton, you know what I mean? Gary Payton and Sean Kemp. Now, you can say these guys weren't competition for Jordan, but he really didn't have people on his team either until Pippen stepped up. So it was the parity was there, but Jordan was just on another level,
Let me ask you this question, okay? I believe the '80s was an era that was probably one of the greatest. I mean, I looked at how Johnson played, how Bird played, the Bad Boys Pistons. I mean, it was a whole nother level. All right. Would you say that today's era of basketball is more competitive than 90s era of basketball?
Well, they had a different rule changes back then. I mean, there was no zone defense. They had you know how Barkley would just dribble, back you down, kind of how Carmelo does. They took that away.
Yeah.
You know, the hand checking was different. So the rules were different back then. You know, they came up with this hacker shack and thing. It wasn't nobody tripping off doing none of that. People was just playing ball. You know what I'm saying? You go into the hole and you're a guard, you get knocked down. I mean, you get knocked down.
Right.
They take your head off.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the rules were different.
Yeah.
You know, you could talk about back then, the refs, the coaches, and the players could control the tempo of the game. When you had the Showtime Lakers, you know you was gonna run.
Yeah.
You know, you was gonna run up and down the court. And then if you played that hard bump and grind like the Detroit Pistons, maybe it would have been a low scoring game. Getting to the 90s, you get the Knicks in Miami with Ewing and Oakley and them boys, and then you get Alonzo Mourning and them boys, you know, playing hard. You know, the game was kind of, you know, it was kind of controlled with the defense, but it was just a different time, man.
Yeah, I think what makes the era stand out is that they always add more rules in the league. Let me ask you this: LeBron James or Michael Jordan?
I'm gonna say Michael Jordan, but LeBron James is like right below.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to me,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because Jordan just took over games, man, himself.
Yeah. I think Jordan was pretty much privileged to be in a very good system. I mean, he had a good support with Scottie Pippen. I mean, even Ron Harper. I mean, even before Ron Harper came into the Bulls, he was a beast himself.
Clippers.
You know, Phil Jackson as a coach. I mean,
right.
Jordan, he was pretty much blessed in a lot of ways, and you know, and he came into the league with, you know, getting beat down by the Pistons. I think that helped.
Yeah, even before the Pistons.
I think the Pistons made Jordan. You know what I'm saying? I think they made Jordan.
Attitude. They came up with that. The Jordan rules that boy was getting knocked out.
Beat them down, you know, and I think Jordan took that attitude into the 90s when he started winning championships and he had that drive, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't an easy task for him because, you know, he I think the East was really a you know, you had to deal with Ewing and those Knicks, and then you got to deal with the Davis boys, Antonio and Dale Davis, and Rick Smith and them monsters. He did have to, and then he had to go through Alonzo Mourning and Hardaway, man, and he went through some battles. Yeah. You know, we went through some battles when he was in the East, and I think what made it easier for him when he got, because Magic and Showtime and Clyde Drexler, and that was more finesse type league. You know, they was, you know, over in the West, they was like balling, you know, like Showtime still kind of.
Who would you say who would be on your Mount Rushmore?
I would say Jordan, Kareem, LeBron, and Magic.
That's good.
I would say, you know, just because Magic, he just kind of changed the pace of the game, man. And, you know, and I mean, Kareem speaks for itself, man. He you know, nobody talk about all his rings. They talk about Jordan's 6 rings. Yeah, man. Who would you have on yours? You got a different era.
Yeah, with my era, I'll have to put Kobe Bryant on there. Can't forget about you know, I'll put LeBron James up there. And I'll still put Jordan up there. Although I didn't see a lot of him growing up. I mean, we know that Jordan's an icon.
It's a song with the Wizards, huh?
Forgot about that one. But you know, I gotta put Jordan up there, and then I gotta put Shaq. I mean, Shaq was the big guy back then when I was growing up. Man, he was unstoppable.
Yeah.
On the Lakers.
Yeah. He changed the rules.
amazing with Penny Hardaway. I remember a little bit growing up watching them.
Yeah.
So
well,
yeah.
See, Kareem had an unstoppable. Kareem had the sky hook. You couldn't stop it, and he did it all through college and when he was with the Milwaukee Bucks early on. So he,
but
that's why I
Shaq,
for him.
Shaq was dominant though, man. He was a
yeah.
Kareem was very finesse with his game, kind of like Hakeem, man. Hakeem was just so smooth, man.
Yeah, he was smooth with it, and the big man was big back then because they had David Robinson. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when Tim Duncan, because people forget about the Spurs run in the '90s. With Rodman was with him for a minute. They got him out of there, got Tim Duncan in there. But people forget about the Spurs, man. And they made some noise. They made some noise, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
man. So whatever era that you grew up in, that's probably.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, we gotta pay some bills, man. Hey, thank you guys for coming on. Tell me something I already know. We gotta get out of here.